6 o'clock. Let's go ahead and call to order. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next up, approval of agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move that we move item L3 to before I1.
Okay, so we'll make I-1 and I-1A. Sounds good. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any other? Everyone approve other than that for the overall agenda? I think we can move on. Okay, next up, comments from the public.
Mr. Chairman, we have one public comment submitted today. The full context of this message is going to be in the board packet for your approval at a later date. The commenter made several points. Urged the board to change the current policy of limiting public comments to written comments that are then summarized to provide in-person public comment. Stated parental and public support is critical to the success of schools and is a key to ensuring support to provide opportunity for community concerns to be heard. Recommended in-person public comment and reporting back at the following meeting what, if any, actions were taken. Stated she has submitted numerous times this school year about the low test scores and requesting an outcomes-based education improvement plan with a strategy, timeline, and progress reports without response. Stated appreciation for the board's hard work and leadership for the benefit of students. That's it.
You? Next up, board business and public comment policy and process update. Any board members have any comments about what we're setting up?
Well, I got a chance to read through it, and thank both the chair and vice chair for doing the work on that. Appreciate you taking the work, and Chris, thank you also for gathering the information on that. And I think you came up with a good policy, and I think it'll work.
Okay, I think we're setting up to have public comment, which is great. This is going to a little extent be kind of a learning process to see what works best. But we're setting it up for, as you can see, if you go up and look at what the input is, that we're going to do it once a month. The first board meeting of the month, and we're not going to get rid of listening sessions because we think we have some value in that because we're able to have an actual dialogue with the public. Do I hear a motion?
I think we were going to do this in new business later today.
Yeah.
Chairman
Okay,
Morris.
great. Oh, go ahead. Roger, do you have something?
I'll wait until it's properly list, we get to the proper time in the agenda to engage.
I'll look forward to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, district leadership team updates, superintendent report.
So the first thing we want to do is just talk through the three goals that we had at the beginning of the year. And when I am done with that, I'll talk something about population, student population. You guys had asked several questions on that. We have developed some of that information for you. And then we'll finish with middle school activities, which I know that you guys have looked for as well. So the first goal was an instructional framework. You guys saw the Center for Educational Leadership's 5D, and that we are beginning to, we're about at the midpoint this year in terms of introducing that to all district teachers, giving feedback on that. We are continuing to work as well with administrators to develop their knowledge of the teaching system. And towards the end of this year, we hope that we can draw it all together and get ready to really go to work in it next year. One of the things that we are trying to do is just make sure that principals get out to classrooms. The more they see it, the more fluent they're going to get. And then, most important, we really want our principals to shift to a really reflective practice with teachers. And there's some skills for that. And hopefully we can end this year with teachers being more ready to teach within that and towards the outcomes in that, and principals to be more ready to support teachers in reflecting and growing their practice towards those. Let's go to the next slide, Chris. I want to remind everybody this is a pilot year for teachers and administrators across the district. We really want to make sure that everybody is aware of what's in the cell and that it's almost automatic that they know what those areas are. We did have a little break in it. We had to move the training back a month due to the strike. Remember that formal evaluations are not going to be conducted at year end, but there will be a final discussion between the teacher and administrator that's going to create their goals and their focus going into next year. I think this is a really important point. There may be a couple of places where people have gone beyond this, but for the most part, teachers are really pretty good at looking at a rubric and figuring out where they are. And there's only 4 columns in the rubric. And there generally seems to be a little more stress if you are to the left of the center line, 1 and 2, versus 3 or sometimes 4. And so we're spending a lot of time right now and intend to work on how we handle those conversations, because it's really just the rubrics there in front of you and how we get you there. We will take growth always and a willingness to move forward on that, as opposed to gotcha, or that there's some trait associated with that. Typically, we would like to message this to be, I'm not at a 3 yet, and then the conversation is what can you do to get there, as opposed to you're a 2, you will always be a 2, right? It is very much a growth-oriented process that we want to create. Second goal, facility planning process. And as we go into this, I want to talk about this need. We know that in this district, there are buildings where if it's 90 degrees outside, there are people whose workday is not threatened or changed in any way. But we also know we have multiple buildings here that have not received any real upgrades to their air movement and air handling for a very long time. Some of these buildings were built in the 60s and the 70s and were built without that. We know that these buildings all, even the new ones, spend their days under the hot sun or frost or a lot of rain at times in the winter. And so all of our facilities continue to deteriorate a little bit just through the conditions that they're in all the time. And so a really good district needs to consistently engage in just ongoing, what do we need to do in our facilities? And so there are several challenges as we look at this. It's not just the facility age and deterioration. Construction costs have also changed. Our enrollment has changed. The community has changed. There's development that is occurring. Typically, it's not always happening convenient to the nearest school with room. And we know also that tax rates and our revenue is changing as well. So if districts all of a sudden say, I'm going to go for a bond, then we always find ourselves with the African proverb as the wise point, which is the best time to plant a tree, the answer is 20 years ago. So we need to consistently see where we're at in our buildings and what to do to improve them. And so I'm sure that we will have multiple conversations. We'll talk a little bit more about where we're going. So in partnership with the community and facility specialists, develop an overall process timeline to determine Greater Albany School District's facility maintenance needs, along with any possible new construction or maintenance of schools or district-related sites. 2015-16, I believe, was the last time the district did a facility assessment. It did lead to a bond in 2017. So we want to create a committee that would begin planning. We'll spend the spring here developing that committee. We will evaluate current maintenance needs in buildings, project population of the community and its students, and identify a consultant firm to support the work. They will regularly report to the GAP School Board on progress. So last year, we began with the state, at no cost to the district, a facility condition assessment, and we looked at the following things. Building components were evaluated for their current condition. Replacement estimates were generated where applicable. The scope of these assessments included inspections of the following areas: building outside the envelope components, mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems, including heating and cooling, hot water systems, electrical systems, panels and lighting, interior finishes, wall ceilings, floors, doors, restrooms, cabinets, etc., and ADA compliance with separate assessments to identify deficiencies, document findings, provide cost estimates for required corrective actions. Dave, you want to jump in on that at all?
No, it's a pretty comprehensive list. Our Director of Facilities, Lauren Stanley, really took this project up with the state. He met with each inspector in each building to make sure they didn't miss anything. And this is a comprehensive list that was put together. We're still getting the reports of the assessments, and we're gathering the final ones, but should have them in the coming days.
Let's go to the next slide. So such a committee, we would really want it to be an independent committee that's going to just give recommendations. Obviously, a board would need to accept and then take any action that a committee would come up with. But we want it to be, the committee to be broadly representative with community connections to all stakeholders, or as broadly as we can. Some with involvement or awareness of past bond projects. Typically, those people went through a period of learning and understand a little bit about what we need to look at. And then we have to find somebody who can process manage that with some knowledge of facilities. And that can be a construction management firm, that could be an architect, that could be a lot of different things, different fields of work. And the committee would work through 25-26, that's next year, to identify maintenance projects in existing facilities. So when we take a look at where our buildings were the hottest as we went through the spring and then into the fall, we know that some of those facilities are way different than the new facilities with strong central air, those kind of things. We also want to look at population projections. We want to measure community support, and I'll talk about our current enrollment upcoming. So the final area that we were working on is by June 2025, improve staff outcomes on classified and certified district surveys to reflect higher levels of learning and provision of support related to behavior. We have wanted to prioritize direct support and training of school staff. We do have stronger presence in schools right now that are supporting around difficult children. And we are going to continue to work on current processes and job responsibilities to ensure flexible responsiveness. One of the challenges, and I think Bruce, if you want to talk a little bit about how we are looking to kind of retool right now in terms of how we support student movement into increasing support settings, I'd invite that.
We're kind of going through a process of evaluating how we work and set universal expectations for students. I had the pleasure of going to a Safe and Simple Schools conference with Susie, Sue Luthra, 3 representatives, teachers, Dana, Heidi Weatherall was there, and we have come up with kind of reevaluating our overall behavior plan and how we're going to work with schools across the district to all get on the same page. That includes bringing teams from each of the schools to evaluate their foundations plan. That's what we teach every student. And then in that process of going through that, we want to ultimately develop a student safety and discipline handbook. That would include all of our tiered systems of support, what we do in each of our schools as a baseline level, identify how we work with students who need additional supports, or students in the yellow zone, and students who need intensive supports, those in the red zone. In addition to that, we want to look at that 4th tier. Ryan has mentioned that several times about students that we haven't quite found the most successful opportunities for them, and we would offer some more intensive instruction outside of a traditional building and then coming back to their home schools. That would be done with a district-wide committee We're in the process of laying those plans out and what that looks like, and we'll begin our meetings this spring. And that aligns directly with the district behavior team that's going to be developed to look at behavioral data district-wide.
And of course, that was also an issue during bargaining, and that committee, will make sure that meets the requirements of that. So we'll go to the next one, Chris. So the other one, it's a little longer term. The ESD has in fact had some models and guest speakers from other districts. But basically, we want to work with the region, the schools in the region, and the ESD to develop a regional behavior program that could include more wraparound supports. We have looked at multiple within the Willamette Valley from Eugene, north of Salem, and looking at how we can do something here that can set up an opportunity for other districts at times to send someone. And of course, we would have opportunities as well. We do happen to be the largest school district in the region, and so we would assume that there's kind of a ratio of seats that would be available. We haven't got down to the details as we move forward. So typically those run with a slot cost. If someone wanted to put a student in there, they would come in with it would cost a certain amount of money that would hopefully come close to equalizing the cost of the services that are being provided. We do have to find a price point that allows districts to be willing to do it. Let's go to the next slide. So this has been asked for by you guys, and so this is first go on our enrollment, and we'll talk a little bit about what this means. And clearly, there's an implication here as well as we look at long-range facility planning and what is needed. Summary of students not enrolled in GAP schools, but are residents of this district. So currently, Jane had given you an ADMR number the other day for 8770. ADMR is generally lower than the total number of students, and I want to say that's going to be somewhere around 8850, 8875. We currently have 415 students in Oregon charter schools, or about 4%. We can limit that, but we are going to have to change our program. Homeschool is 634. Those are not, we did not have 0 students in homeschool 3 years ago. We've always had homeschool students from the ESD, and I've asked them to give us a historical number just to see where we are now compared to 3 or 4 years ago, and hopefully they can come back to us. They have to register by law with the ESD. I'm not sure that captures all of them. Some people are out of public school and not registering, right? There's no police to go out and find them, right? We have transfers, 157 students transfer out of our district to other school districts, 163 students transfer in. And all of those are snapshots of the present, right? So we can give it more context. We can go back and see the history in some of these. What we don't know are students who enroll in private schools as first graders that do not transfer away from our school. So if they've enrolled in a private school, there's no sending of requests for their records or anything like that. You guys have any questions about that list?
Do you know what the enrollment of AOL is off the top of your head?
AOL.
Albany Online.
Albany Online.
I don't today. I don't right now. We can get that for you.
When that was created, I'm pretty sure I was here to capture those virtual charter kids. We don't appear to be doing a very good job of it.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Roger.
So Superintendent Gardner, I don't remember to the conclusion at the last meeting, but I did. And that was that 1 in 5 households that have kids eligible to come to GAPS, living in GAPS, are not doing that. It would look like that math may be wrong. Help me
I think
with
it's
that.
lower than that, right? So 1 in 5, if we have almost 9,000, then you'd be looking at closer to 1,800 students total. And I don't think it's that high. But 415 is 4%. So you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of 9%,
Well,
something like that.
You're 1,049 out of 8,770, whatever that math is.
Where'd you get 1,049?
What's
Oh,
the
the
homeschool?
top two, yeah, okay. So out of 8,770, and I think that you're gonna be looking at 18%, something like 17%. Or not that much,
Plus the
And,
private school.
yeah.
And we don't know if they just went straight to private school.
That's right.
I mean, I think the big thing you're getting at, Roger, and I think all of us should be concerned about is the fact that the capture rate for public schools is going down.
Yeah. What we have not reached yet is the capture rate of our incoming kindergartners versus the live births, and we're working on that to begin to get a picture of that. Let's go to the next one. So recent transfers to online charter schools. Since November, we have had 59 students transfer to online charter schools. But this, the next line below that is, of those, 15 were homeschool students who moved to a charter school. And you will see this at times when students get to 4th or 5th grade. Parents will sometimes bring their kids back to school because that becomes, it's more difficult to teach kids as the subjects get more complex. But also there are people who homeschool their students, reach the same conclusion and go to an online charter school where a teacher actually handles the instruction. And that is, but the truth is 34 students have transferred from our brick and mortar charters or public schools.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to understand, I guess, not tonight, but eventually.
Yeah.
So we have a virtual we have a virtual online school, and kids are not going to it. And so I'd like to understand why, take a look at the cost. Is it worth running at all? Did you get that enrollment?
Yeah, we're at about 140 students.
All right, so there's 400 out, we have 140
Yeah.
in. To me, that's a problem. I'd like to take a deeper look. And maybe we shutter it, it's not working, or we do a better job with it, but something.
So one of the things that the state requires your online school to have, before we can tell them they have to come, we have to offer a choice of curriculums of
Yeah,
ways
I'd
of
rather
learning.
not tell them they have to come, I'd rather they choose to. I would think we
Yeah.
could value add a virtual school, that we could do things with ours that Orca or other towns couldn't, because we're attached to the place where they live. Like, we should be able to beat the competition for those kids, I think.
Yeah, so we will develop that
Okay.
and we'll talk about that. But I do think that there is some value in adding two curricular choices so that we do have the ability to say, look, this is the one we've got.
Sure.
But making it good to where they're willing is also important.
Yeah, and I think finding that out from those parents might be helpful, right?
Yeah, yeah. Let's go to the next slide. So this is the enrollment forecast. It was done in August of 2022, or the district received it, I guess would be a better way to say, in August of 2022. And the study was based on student enrollment, demographic, and land use analysis. They looked at all the developments that were occurring at that time. Of course, some of those are already houses. And then the enrollment forecast was based on the live births of students in the district. And they got to a point, right, so you can look back 5 years ago and you can see how many kids could be coming to your school just based on the number of kids that were born here. Doesn't include families that move in, which is why they went back to the demographic and land use, because they make an assumption about the number of kids they're going to get. But they also assume into the future, kind of based on what your birth rate will be. So by the time you get 6 or 7 years out, the birth rate is assumed and then the capture rate is assumed. Right now, we're still in that period of time following August of 2022 when we have a birth rate that we can look at. So one of the slides, and I can send this out to you guys again, I think we did send it out at some point 3 years ago. But each time that Portland State or Flow Analytics, which I think has former Portland State people that have created a company, they tend now not to give you one line, they give you a low, medium, and high range. And the point that I want to make right now is that we are showing that our low line in 2024 was 8,917 kids. So in terms of exactly right now, we are on the blue line in terms of our progress. The other point that I want to make is in 2016, where we were over 9,500 students, and in the study, on the average line, we are projected to only get to that point in 2031. So the orange line only is returning to that number in 2031. And if you take a look at 2025, the midline, those are not numbers that would recover. So I guess the point that I would make out of this slide is it isn't about recovering to 9,510. It is about how do we begin to improve along that midline or get to that midline. Because I don't think all the kids that are gone, like they've gone through online school, their parents may be working from home now. Those things have changed. It may make some of those kids harder to get just because the family life has changed, the dynamics have changed.
So, my understanding, in 2016, we were actually higher than where it currently is right there, and currently in 2024, we're lower than the blue line, which is the lowest projection.
Yeah, I would say, so that number, I can't say yet, so we just declined, 40 kids over the last 3 months. But in general, we are nearer the blue line than the orange line. Let's go to the next slide. This is another slide taken from the report. And again, 2022, but if you take a look at the bottom, this is the orange line and the projections. The same thing shows the cohorts. And we will come back at the next meeting because it will be a real key in budget. We are going to be looking at the kindergarten and what our capture rate is there. And we can also show you a little bit about what we're doing to really reach out to parents at kindergarten level. Any questions on that? I'm sure there are several.
Roger.
So we were at the blue line. Why would you use the orange
just-
line for modeling, but for budget?
We are not going to use that. We are going to
Thank you.
figure out the kindergarten line, and it will be different. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
And one thing I think is important to say is, at least this is from what I understand, although we've declined in capture rate, other districts have even done worse than us. We're above the norm.
Other districts are feeling it collectively as a region. That puts also a pressure on the ESD and the services it can provide.
Right.
Because it is the accumulation of, I think in the region, we have over 30,000 kids in the region. So Albany's well over a quarter, but not quite a third of all students. But Corvallis is experiencing rapid loss, and all those add up to, I think they're around 4,000 students shorter than they were in the region.
Right. And the big overall concern is the fact that the population is increasing and less kids are going to public school.
True.
And that's something we should all think about and be concerned about. Okay. Any other questions?
And we'll develop some of this. If you guys have other questions, we'll develop them and we'll continue to put this up because I think it's a clear and present challenge for us. And whether it's the online school and how we structure that, how we count our kindergarten students, we'll keep you guys aware as we do this because it's going to be a challenge.
One thing we might do, Andy, is if you go back to the line chart, if you could put the actual on the bottom, I don't know if that's possible. So we have our estimates, but we can have the actuals as we go forward. We know in time what we actually did.
Yes.
It might be interesting to compare to.
Yeah, so
to
we
that.
have a line of actuals. It's a trend line as well.
That'd be very helpful.
Thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to Bruce. He's got middle school co-curricular program. We've had some questions about that as well. Give you the basics on that. Go ahead, Bruce.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Gerner. I have the pleasure to present some information about our middle school co-curricular programming. I know that we made an investment in providing opportunities for students at the middle school to be connected to their school beyond the traditional school day. Every one of us knows that the more involved our students are, the more successful that they're going to be. Okay? So just to talk about some general philosophy around programming. First and foremost is to provide opportunities for students to engage in their school community, as well as providing opportunities for students to participate in both competitive and non-competitive clubs and sports. Provide a safe space for students both during the school day through lunch-based clubs and during after-school activities, and to enhance the school culture and student-adult relationships through co-curricular interactions. We want students to have a pride in their space, a pride in their building, and be connected to their community for more than just the school day. In terms of budget, our programming is funded through the Student Investment Account, SIA. We had dedicated $200,000 for programming and program cost only. And what I mean by that is any form of transportation is not included in that $200,000 budget. That comes out of our general fund. Each school received $50,000, and the way that that money is spent is based on building decisions. We do not dictate what buildings we'll spend the money on, other than the fact that all buildings will run a fall activity of cross-country and a spring activity of track. Clubs and everything else that are developed are based on what students want and what the building sees as best use of the funds. To give you some numbers, I'm first going to talk about our club offerings. This year we set some conditions on what constitutes a club. Every club needs to meet at least once per week. Each club must have an enrollment of at least 10 students. Each club needs to meet for a duration of at least 24 weeks or its equivalent. Some clubs may be meeting 5 days a week in a shortened time period. For example, when we put on Beauty and the Beast, there was a huge amount of time at the start, right? So it was the equivalent of 24 weeks in a much more compacted time frame. These clubs may run during the school day or after school. So that's kind of the structure of the club offerings. If you look at the total number of clubs district-wide, it's 34, engaging 781 students. You can see the breakdown by building. And just to give you an idea of the types of clubs, we have competitive clubs such as Oregon Battle of the Books, chess, and robotics. All of those compete both within the building and in tournaments and competitions. Performance-based clubs with drama and musical theater. In the fall, we had a production of Beauty and the Beast, and then in the spring, we're working on Alice in Wonderland. And then we also emphasize building culture and climate within the school building through student leadership, providing affinity spaces for students, as well as tutoring and academic support. So those are our club offerings and the number of students involved. In addition to that, we want to provide an opportunity for students to participate in an athletic activity. Currently, we offer cross-country in the fall and track and field in the spring. General competition format for both of those activities. Cross-country, all meets are conducted on the weekend, Saturday events, and they have a competition, a regional competition towards the end of their season. Track and field, our middle schools compete with each other. There are a total of 5 meets and then a district competition at the end of the season. If we look at athletic numbers right now, cross-country had 129 student participants. You can see the breakdown by school. There were 5 meets, all held on Saturday for cross-country, 7-week season length. Track and field is coming up. These are projected numbers, and I got these based on what they've had in the past and what they anticipate this year. There'll be 4 meets all during the school week, and then district championship meet on a Saturday, and that is a 7-week season as well. There is opportunity to expand some offerings for students with the winter experience as well. So we have a fall and a spring. It would be great to have something in the winter. Some things that we would want to do in this case is gather some information from students to identify what they would want to participate in. Look at our current community offerings. What could we offer that kids don't currently have access to in the community or have access to on a limited basis? In addition to that, consult with our high school athletic directors to determine the feeder needs, like what do we need to get kids involved in so they can transition to the high school. Some suggested ideas for the winter were both basketball and wrestling. And then the other part of that is competing with neighboring districts. I know that's a big discussion. There are some challenges with that. One is with our transportation system right now. Currently, for track season, we compete during the week amongst our middle schools. Currently, kids leave their middle school around 1 o'clock. They get to Timber Ridge, where all of our track meets are held, and the track meet doesn't start until 3 to 3:30. So students literally leave at 1 o'clock, they take a 15-minute bus ride, and then they have to wait for competition. We don't have the ability to transport at the end of the school day because all of our buses are running routes to transport students. If we also look to compete with neighboring districts, we would need to make sure that we have program alignment in terms of the sports that we're offering, and partner with other districts to do that. And then the last thing is some additional budget constraints on that, looking at release time for coaches on travel days.
Do you think we have officials solve that?
Yeah, so I can't remember. So I met with Jay and Donnie to kind of talk about what this might look like as a winter activity. Both of them felt that wrestling was very well taken care of with the Mat Club based on the number of students that are involved, the longevity of that program, and the history of that program. We did talk quite a bit about basketball, looking at running a 7th and 8th grade basketball league with our middle schools. They would compete against each other over the course of the season. They would play each school twice. At the end of the season, we would look to hold a regional basketball tournament. And we would be able to break the season into 2 parts, just because of gym space. You can't run both boys and girls simultaneously. So we'd run either boys or girls from the end of October until winter break. And then when we got back from winter break, we would run the next season from January to the middle of February. 7-week season, 2 weeks to get ready to play, and then five competitions with a regional tournament that we could host at the end of the season. Officials would be your biggest expense. What we would end up doing is we would get high school students that understand the game. We would use our local officials association to train these students how to officiate. And then we would get kids the opportunity to play legitimate games with officials. I do know that works in another district. We ran a JV program that was run just like that, and it was super successful. So those are some things that we're looking at doing moving forward. Any questions on that?
Roger.
So, we had to request to bring middle school basketball into the schools, I think, 2 or 3 meetings ago. I don't remember exactly. And,
Public comment. Yep.
right, and I engaged, and my initial response was, it costs money and we don't have any. And but I was quickly corrected in how do you know you need money and how much do you know you need? And so, any idea what costs would be for middle school basketball, if you will?
Yeah, our largest expense is gonna be stipends for coaches. And if you give me 1 second, I can give you an idea. It is fluctuating on the cost of a stipend based on the years of experience. If the person is a staff member, when talking with both Jay and Donnie, the focus is we want to have our in-building staff members serve as coaches. A stipend for a coach runs anywhere from $2,400 to $3,100. That's coaches with 3 or more years experience, or between $2,000 and $2,700 for 0 to 2 years experience. Out of district or non-district employees are cheaper than in-district employees. But what we would look at is we would probably be looking at, it would be 4 coaches for each middle school, so 16 stipends we would have to come up with a cost for.
Per season?
Per season. Well, no, it would be, yeah.
So 50 grand in rough math.
I think it's twice that. Per season, so there's a short girl season and a short boys season.
So you would need, at each middle school, you would need a 7th and 8th grade coach. So it would be, per season, it would be 2 coaches per school. So 10 is that right? 4 times, 10, 8 coaches. So 8 coaches We'll do it at 2,500 as a mid. So you're looking about 20,000 for boys, 20,000 for girls.
What about officials?
Officials, you would pay the students to officiate, probably be about $50 per student per game.
So.
We're probably looking at least 50, plus transportation cost.
So when I attended junior high, middle school in Albany, it was a school sport and not a Boys and Girls Club. And my sense is that it helps build that community, if you will, that is the school. And it's easy for me to say now because we're not yet in budget, but on a $120 million budget, I can't imagine that we couldn't find $50,000 to do this. In addition, there's significant support right now in the district for both boys and girls basketball. Currently, the girls team at South Albany is rated 3rd in the state. At West Albany, their girls team is rated 8th. They play tomorrow night, and it might not be the last time they face each other. Could at the state tournament. And the West Albany boys are 3rd. The South Albany boys are 7th, and the same could apply there. I think it reflects very well in our community, the teamwork, the work ethic of the students at both schools, and there's a momentum building in the community at the lower levels, and it would be, in my view, an opportunity missed if we didn't pursue adding middle school basketball for both the boys and the girls. And we get that figured out, I'll want to take a run at volleyball as well, but we're not there yet.
Pete?
Go ahead, Brad.
One of the things, Bruce, I would ask that we do is make sure we talk to the YMCA and the Albany Boys and Girls Club so that we don't go over the top of their schedule, so that we can have opportunities for both to play in both, for our students to play in both places if they choose to.
Right. I would, in conversations with the 2 athletic directors, I don't believe we would be in competition with many of the students, that are athletes that are currently engaging in club sports, in those existing leagues. We're hoping to capture some kids that aren't involved in those locations to give them an opportunity to play and develop and be part of the school. Practices would be following the release of school, generally an hour long. In most cases, they're going to be able to finish up and go to another practice if that's the case. Games generally once a week, right? So that, again, offers them the ability to play at school and continue to play in Boys and Girls Club YMCA, or if they're in an AAU program.
Yeah, I
to
just
do
don't
that
want
as
them to have to make a choice.
No.
If it gets to that. So if we can just, have a little bit of thought on that. And,
Oh, sure.
yeah,
I'm in contact with the Y and Boys and
Okay.
Girls Club
good.
on these issues.
Excellent.
We've talked about a range of things that could be offered.
Okay, good.
I'm all for adding things. I would say my kids coaching 5th and 6th graders right now. So I mean, they have the high school kids coach some of the teams. They're playing now.
Right.
So it will be something we have to look at. I would tell you, I would be very interested in having both, whether it be the middle school or high school people come and talk to us about how they'd add basketball or wrestling. I think wrestling is now. I mean, I've went to a wrestling meet at West a little while ago. They had 6 mats, and I would bet at least 40% of the wrestlers were women. Right? I mean, it's not a boy sport anymore. It's a co-ed sport, you know.
Absolutely.
And and it probably could be done for less, and have a lot of involvement. And I think the real key here is we want to get kids involved. We want them to have school spirit, and we want to have an opportunity. Like you said, the MAT club's doing good, but if we put it underneath the middle schools and can do that for a little bit of money, that would be fantastic. I think it'd be good for the kids. I say we move towards getting them come to talk to us about what we can do.
Right. Wrestling would have a much higher initial cost to ensure that we had mats.
They
and
already
ability-
exist.
Yeah.
So I mean, there is not. I mean, That exists, right? I mean, I would say, I bet you wrestling's going to be cheaper than basketball because you need less coaches, and the mats already exist. You ask the guys who are doing it, and I bet you it'd be about the same numbers, which is fantastic.
So the only thing there, Pete, is we have kind of assessed what programs other districts offer. And so, like within a league where they would wrestle in a league or whatever, not every middle school has school wrestling. A lot of them move to clubs on the weekends, things like that, from clubs.
I don't disagree with you, but also this, I mean, our city hosts state middle school. We host it, I mean, so the idea of bringing that back makes sense to me as well, and it would probably be for a lot less money than basketball. So I'd like to hear them if those are the two that are talking about bringing back. Let's hear from them. Okay.
I have some thoughts on that.
Sure.
Try to keep it linear. Yeah, I'm a big fan of middle school activities. A big part of my reason I do what I did was middle school hooking me in, and not having to go to a club to do it, right? If you don't do it in
Right.
my own school. And I think, there's conversations here around, there's a cost per kid factor that you got to think about. Cross country's cheap per kid, and basketball's expensive per kid, and most sports fall somewhere in between those two. Some of my questions, I guess, are sort of, we carved up $50K and handed it to each middle school and said, do what you want. I don't know if that was whose idea that was. Is that the board said could do that, or you guys said, and then you created a philosophy? Like, what was the genesis of that?
Well, I wouldn't say that they could, there were some stipulations. They had to run cross-country and they have to run track.
Okay.
And then looking at clubs, and a lot of that is we want to offer things that students are interested in engaging in. When I got here in July, it was kind of the format that was set up. When we got together in August, I looked at how the clubs were run in the past, and we came up with some agreements to make sure that we had numbers in clubs and weren't offering a club for 4 kids that met once a month.
Okay.
Right? So there was some agreements that we had to come to ensure that the money that we were investing had a return with the number of students involved at each school. And some of those clubs are super well established. The robotics clubs, especially at Timber, I know NAMS runs a robotics club. They compete like in, Jody, 4 events?
Yes, when they actually compete. The strike kind of took us out this year.
Yeah, but still.
They have the opportunity to.
So, I mean, it's a competitive.
Yeah, I'm a big fan
Right.
of robotics too. So I guess, Mike, some of the things I would wonder about are, say, clubs that meet at lunch. I'm not sure that that's an
Those are
appropriate-
those are just a few clubs that meet at lunch.
Okay.
So mostly the affinity groups meet at lunch.
Okay,
Most all others are all after-school activities.
okay. And there are
Yeah.
things that schools wouldn't do otherwise. Like I saw leadership up there. Sort of feel like schools are doing leadership either way.
I mean, some of those are planning activities for school. They may not be able to offer that elective during the school day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, board reports, board members. Roger?
I have some things. I want to clarify in the previous comment about air movement in classrooms and how long it had been. I thought that either during COVID or towards the end of COVID, we were forced to analyze that and bring some classrooms up to an exchange level that they had not been prior. And so, from my perspective, I want to establish and make clear that the air movement in classrooms today meet all federal and state requirements.
They do COVID requirements that were in place during COVID.
Okay.
Those have fallen away. So Central now has air handlers. That's the one place I know that they had to bring in blowers
And
to make
open
sure they
windows.
met the requirement.
Okay? To the issue of, I guess, positioning the district to form a work group to begin to look at a bond, I've got a couple of thoughts. One is, and I was trying to pull them up. I wasn't able to pull Benton counties up, but I got Lynn counties. The bond that was approved in 2017 was approved 53 to 46%.
47, yep.
46.5 or something like that. And if you look today at what the participation rate is versus what it was in 2017, I would be concerned about going out with a bond today. The participation rate of students, as we discussed earlier, versus those who are eligible. So I think that we need to reach out to the community first, do some statistically valid survey work, probably with the same company that did it in 2017, because they would have a baseline, and have a conversation with the community. And while you're doing that, we likely could probe for those families that are choosing not to send their kids to GAPS but live in the district, and why. And in a perfect world, we would come up with an action plan to stabilize that enrollment number and get the trend moving the right direction. It would be, I would be hard pressed to form a committee, to agree to form a committee as the participation rate continues to move down. I just don't know how you plan going forward to add facilities and add capacity without stabilizing that. In addition, I guess I'll defer the rest of it until I hear our student reports and maybe follow up after they're done.
Ryan, you have anything? Okay, I want to talk a little bit about, recently read a few articles about public education, and unfortunately, Oregon hasn't come out in the best light on that. And I think part of the reason for that was Oregon students were out of in-person school longer. Also, I think, unfortunately, the state has enacted some less fortunate laws that haven't been that beneficial to our students. And, how we fund public education here in Oregon is demanding. Inflation has been way higher than the rate the state is giving us, and that makes it very demanding. I think one of the things Roger alluded to, and so did our superintendent, we're all talking about, and I think it's almost criminal not to really, for everyone to really focus on it, is if we are capturing less of our public education K through 12 age kids, where do we think that's going to go, right? If people aren't entrusting their kids with us, they're probably not going to be voting for this either, and that's concerning, right? Public education is the bedrock. I think it's also really fair to say our teachers and staff have an incredibly tough job, right? I mean, schools are just not teaching academics anymore, right? I mean, the family lives for most of our students is way different than when I was in school, right? And that creates extra demands for our teachers. We're having to deal with mental health issues, social media, phone issues. Kids are coming to school with not having the clothes or food or all these things that the schools are now providing, which makes sense. I mean, who can learn academics when they're hungry, right? But also it's something that was never done when I was in school, right? It was expected you were going to come to school and have a full belly, or at least not be hungry. And now we're dealing with that. And our state and federal government's not giving us more money to provide those things. So it's just a very challenging environment. I'm really hopeful that we can bring more of the just basics, common sense stuff back to education to achieve two things. Better results, because we need better results. Our kids need to be ready to go to be adults, whether that be in college or in a job when they leave our high schools or they get that diploma. And also, I think it's really important for our teachers and staff to have a better job environment, you know, to be able to have those relationships with their kids that they've mentored and they're able to set them out free and feel really good about it. You know, we have a lot of behavioral issues and things that make the job just a lot more challenging than it ever was. You know, so I think it's important for us to appreciate the job everyone's doing. Okay, next up, our student board members. Who's up first?
I am.
Okay, thank you.
So South Albany has progressed to getting through the first day of school on second semester today. Woohoo. We're looking forward to Pride Week meeting, which is tomorrow, which is a group of students who will brainstorm ideas of the acronym of PRIDE to involve more of our student body activities, clubs, and assemblies. The Unity Alliance Club is active in involving all school clubs for a Valentine's Club fundraiser and help everybody fundraise a amount of money. And then we have our unified basketball game this Wednesday, and it also is senior night. It'll be at 6 p.m. like usual, so we hope you guys be there. And we have stacked basketball games and swim districts at home, so we're doing well so far.
Thank you.
For West Albany, it was finals week last week, and today is the first day of semester 2. There's a new policy for the library to have a lunch pass during the lunch period for students entering the library. And the West Albany Jazz Band won their competition this Saturday at West Salem. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next up is committee, community, and, oh, go ahead, Roger.
Can I follow up? I've got to just add to it. There's just a lot going on this month for our student athletes, and want to make sure we get it all covered if members of the public are interested. South and West do play, as mentioned, tomorrow night. The girls at 5:30 and the boys at 7 o'clock at South. The wrestling boys district starts the 14th at 11 o'clock. It's at West Albany. The girls is the 21st district. I think that's at West Albany as well. And the district swim meet is the 13th at the South Albany pool. Not to forget cheer. South Albany participates on the 15th at 2:55 and West at 6 o'clock that evening. Wish all of our student athletes the best of luck and encourage the community to show up and turn out and support these fine young athletes.
Thank you, Roger. Okay, next up, committee, community, and school presentations. School report, Oak Elementary School. Bruce.
Tonight, we have the pleasure of Jana Pierce presenting on Oak Elementary School.
Welcome.
Jana, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you to Superintendent Gardner and Board Chair and Board members for this opportunity to share about my amazing Oak Elementary. And thank you to Kathy for the super cool new pointer that's much less stressful than trying to get in on Zoom. So, at Oak Elementary, we are a proud group of stingers who are excited to help students excel and reach their full potential and equip them to be contributing members of society who are doing their best to excel in all the ways that they can. Our first goal, you'll see here there's a picture of our book vending machine. One of the things we were able to get this year is a book vending machine. If you haven't seen one, you should come see it. It's very cool. It congratulates you when you put in your token that you earn. Our goals for our school this year really focused on students increasing their own growth goals and meeting their growth goals and their stretch goals in both reading and math. So our first one is that 75% of students will meet their growth goal or their stretch goal, which would be a 10% increase over last year. So last year, as we ended the year, we had 65% of our students who met, and our goal for this year is that 75% of our students meet. Right now, we're sitting at about within 1% of where we were last year. I know there's always some concern coming off some extra weeks off this year. But last year at this time of year, we had about 49% of our students who were at or above grade level. And right now we're at 48% of our students who are at or above grade level. So we're seeing that even with the weeks off, they are right on target to be where we want them to be by the end of the year. As of January, so we just finished doing our assessments in math and reading, and right now 35% of our students have met their growth goal and 15 have met their stretch goal. So for our students who are below grade level, in order for them to catch up, we need them actually to make greater growth than is typical. And so we're excited to see that 15% of them already have met their stretch goal for the year, and the rest of them are well on their way. Some things that we're doing every day is we have a dedicated SEA in each classroom to help with small group and reading interventions. Earlier this year, our staff asked for some professional development around writing, and we worked really hard to look at how can we align vertically all of our writing that we're teaching. Teaching writing to little kids is incredibly hard, as you can imagine. It's about 35 mini lessons every day. And so our staff were looking at ways that they could make that easier from K to 5. So we looked at what are strategies we can start to teach them in kindergarten that they can carry through to help make it easier each year. And also looked at what do we teach them in kindergarten, where do they need to be in 5th grade, and what are the steps we need to take. So our staff are really engaged in that and are excited to try some new things this year in order to help our students get there. I talked about student individual goals. That was one of our big pieces of helping students meet their goal. We really want them to understand where they are, what are they doing to get there, and where do they want to be. And so all of our students set individual goals this year in the fall. They looked at where they were, they talked with their teacher individually about where they wanted to go, and then they set those goals for the winter. So we just finished up the winter, and any student who made their goal got a token for the vending machine. The vending machine doesn't take money, it only takes tokens, and you earn tokens by meeting your individual goals. So that was one way that students were able to earn a token to get a book out of the vending machine. They also have shorter term goals that they do throughout each month and each week with their teachers. All of them, though, are based around either reading or math, and that is how students are able to get. So the books in the vending machine are solely based on your own individual growth and are you meeting those goals for yourself, and that's how kids get it. They're pretty excited about it. It is very cool, so if you haven't had a chance to stop by and see it, please come see our vending machine. It'll congratulate you once you put the token in, and it's really fun. The other thing that we're doing is we're working really hard with the time we have to give our teachers chances to be in classrooms. So they're doing learning walks, and then we've used some of our title funds to give them additional planning time with our instructional coach to really work on where are their students at and where do they want them to be. Just last week, we looked at all of our students and their growth. We looked at which students didn't make the typical growth that we expected. If they were below grade level, we talked about those students individually and what were we gonna do for them each specifically to help them get there. So we're really trying to look at globally where are our kids at and where are we going, but also down to each individual kid and what do they specifically need. Same sort of idea for math. So by this June, we're hoping that 70% of our students will meet their growth goals. This would be an 11% increase over last year. We are seeing the very same trend in math that we are seeing in reading. Actually, our students were about 1% over this year right now where they were last year at this same time as far as overall percentage of students who are at or above grade level. We have 21% of our students who have met their growth goal and 6% who have already met their stretch goals. We did this year use some of our title funding to purchase MyPath. It is an adaptive math practice supplement that we're using. It is part of iReady, which is the curriculum we hope to adopt soon. So when and if we can adopt it, that work will transfer with them. But it gives them a chance to work where they're at, and it gives our teachers a chance to kind of fill some holes. So if we see students who are in the 5th grade, but they're missing some of those 3rd grade pieces, our teachers can give them extra practice. In addition, we also purchased Do the Math last year, which is a math intervention. So all of our grades have SEA support dedicated during math time to provide support and intervention for students who need to backfill some of those holes. We also worked with our teachers this year. Investigations has been in our district for a really long time, and it was starting to feel a little old. For a better word, and they were looking for ways to kind of beef it up and revamp it and give kids kind of a new life to it as it's here for a little bit longer. And so our coach worked with them on, it's called Fruit Salad. It's a type of rotation and instructional model where kids have one-on-one time with the teacher or small group time with the teacher at their instructional level, and then have a chance to also work with their peers, all of it based on the standard and the lesson for the day, but in a much smaller group setting so that we can be a little more targeted in the instruction that we're giving. We also worked to increase our family engagement. We find that a lot of families still say they don't know how to teach the new math, or they don't understand necessarily what their kids are coming home with. So we had a family math night actually just recently where we invited families to come in. We gave them the opportunity to work at a station with all of their children. It had an early, a middle, and a high level, so the whole family could be at the same table working together. And then we provided them with a math kit to go home that had a lot of supplemental materials. So it had a clock in it. A lot of our kids, they don't see a lot of non-digital clocks anymore, and so it had a clock in it, and it had some counting cubes, and it had some tiles, and just different manipulatives they could use with ideas for how they could help practice with their kids at home. Our families are really wanting to engage with the school, and they want to engage with the kids, and sometimes they're just not 100% sure how. So we're trying really hard this year to offer them ideas on how, and then the tools to do that. So not only here's how you do it, but here's some books to do it with, or here's how you do it, but here's some math tools to do it with, so that they have all the pieces they need at home to hopefully help them engage more with their children when they see the papers and the different things that their students are learning. Our third goal this year was new for us. We have a school counselor full-time. We're very lucky that we have Mrs. Shaw full-time as our school counselor, and she really wanted to look at how we were using DESA and how she was doing small groups and how were those impacting students. So we know we're doing them, but what sort of growth are we seeing from them? So our goal this year, looking really at our student social emotional health, was after we took DESA, which is the screener we give them in the fall that kind of looks at overall social emotional pieces, we give it again, just like math and reading, in the winter, and then we give it again in the spring. And our goal was for students to grow by 10% in those skills, so in their ability to show those skills in their day-to-day life. The ways we're doing this is our counselor teaches every student every week one whole group lesson at least. In addition, she then pulls small groups, so she does 6-week rounds of 10 to 12 small groups, and each small group has 3 to 5 students typically. So she's seeing all kids every week, and some kids 2 times a week, and some kids she'll see 2 times a week, multiple times throughout the year. So we have a lot of opportunities for our students to work on those social emotional skills, both inside the classroom with peers and then outside with the counselor in some really targeted ways. So she created some pre and post assessments based on the curriculum she's using and based on DESA. And so our goal is by the end of the year, we'll take the data she took at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and then by the end of the year, we would hope to see that all students were able to grow by at least 10% in each of those categories. Early literacy, I know you've heard other people talk about it. Really at elementary, we are very, very focused and spend a lot of our time talking about early literacy. Every day, our teachers are in the classroom working on those foundational skills, whole group, small group, intervention groups, just really trying to figure out exactly what do our students have, and then targeting specifically with different screeners and lessons, what do they need, and trying to fill those holes very intentionally. We also spent a lot of time this fall. We were lucky with a little bit of extra time with our SEA staff to give them some additional training on small groups, some additional training on early literacy. And we see that particularly at Oak, we have a group of SEAs who have been with us a long time. They're highly skilled, they're great with students, they bring a lot of knowledge to the table, and we see that show up every day in the scores and in the growth that we see in our students. So we're very lucky to have them and the knowledge they bring, in addition to then students also being able to be seen by their teacher consistently. Other priorities at Oak. So one thing we used our grant for this year, we always try to use it in different ways to enrich what's going on out inside of our schools. So we have OMSI coming for a science assembly. They do experiments and they kind of show different stuff. We also have a school garden. There's a picture of it in the top corner there. Our first grade teacher is very passionate about students being outside and learning outside and taking what they learn in the classroom and applying it out in the classroom. So they've built that over the last year and a half, and now they are starting to plant in it and see some of the fruits of their labor. We also had an artist in residence who was able to come this fall. She came and helped all students create, they learned a little bit about art, and then she helped all students, K through 5, bless her heart, to paint tiles about our garden. And that mural will go up with the help of facilities this spring on the wall of the modular there to help brighten up our garden and just be another way that kids have contributed to that space. Our teachers use it all year long, more so in the spring and summer, but they do use it as a place to take kids, a place to relax, a place to take a walk. It's really a benefit to our school, and we appreciate the work that goes into it. We're continuing to focus on attendance, as is everybody I know. It is a big piece. It's hard this year. We've had a lot of sickness. You can probably hear a little bit of it in my voice. We're really good at elementary at sharing germs, and kind of big sickness this year, it seems like. But we're still really focused on it. Every week we have an attendance initiative that we work on. Every week at Monday morning gathering, we talk about the classroom's attendance for the week before. They can earn prizes. They get a chance to pie me or other staff members when they've filled their attendance hive. So we're still really trying to globally look at how can we all be at school on time every day. And the benefits of that. Of course, as a staff, we're working on our cell observations and walkthroughs and the learning that that brings. And then we also, as a staff at Oak, have really tried to look at, Oregon came out with kind of an update to their database and their dashboard for SBAC where you can see a little bit more information than they used to be able to pull easily, and allows you to drill down farther on specific skills that kids are missing. So last year was the first year we kind of tried it, and we did see an increase in our SBAC scores across the board. So we're hoping this year to dive into it a little bit more, but really just looking at where are students excelling, and then again, what are those specific gaps that they're maybe not doing as well in on the SBAC, and why? Is it a curriculum thing? Is it a pacing thing? We just don't get there by the time they test, or is it we're missing it, or what are they not understanding? So we're just trying to also look at that. Our teachers have really enjoyed the information they can get out of the dashboard. Historically, you take SBAC and then it's like the results don't come back till the next year, and you're not even really sure what claim 3 is. And so it's been nice to show them some of the benefits of taking the test and what it can show us and how they can apply it pretty quickly into their classroom. And then we are continuing to work on building our green zone with safe and civil schools, and our work there, building those foundational pieces of encouraging kids to do the right thing, to be kind, to be respectful, to be safe, encouraging that and making sure that that is the culture of our school and that that's what everyone's striving towards. Some things that we're really excited about and proud of at Oak. So last year, like I talked about, we increased our attendance rate from 53% 2 years ago to 68% last year. And currently we're sitting at 73%, which I was pleasantly surprised given how sick a lot of us have been. And then we had an artist in residence, like I talked about, our garden, our family nights. That's Stinger Steve, our mascot there. He joins us for many of our family nights. He's a big hit. The kids are always trying to figure out who Stinger Steve is and why he doesn't come more often, but they really love it when Stinger Steve shows up. And then we're just excited about some of our work around SBAC. Test scores don't tell us everything, but they do tell us some things that are really important for us to know. So last year, like I said, we worked on snack and track, where every kid had a snack and took a walk around the track before they sat down for their testing break. And we tried to do that. It seemed to help. It motivated them because they wanted the snack, and everybody loves to go outside. So we tried that. We also broke it down quite a bit. We did no more than 30-minute chunks, and then we really looked at, again, the dashboard to kind of drive some of the decisions we were making. We did see growth in all categories, so we're excited to kind of build on that this spring and see how we can make it better and how we can use that to drive forward even more results and growth for kids. What questions do you have for me?
Brad?
Well, I just want to say thank you for, we got a chance to do a walk through your school.
Yeah.
It was really
Thanks for
entertaining.
coming.
And it was a lot of fun. And they have a lot of energy. I wish I could borrow some, but they're very busy. Thank you. That's all.
Roger?
Still doing the mileage club.
Yeah, second
love it.
Saturday. Stinger Steve's there often. Julie Lorraine, my amazing behavior assistant, has that up. They can earn mileage charms. They love it.
Can the kids still go out and run a couple laps during the
Yes.
day if
Yep. Well, all of them most of the time. Right now, the track's a little muddy, and some of us aren't always making the best decisions with so much space between us and the adults. So we've shortened it a little bit in this winter to help with all that. But they also get a chance to do Mileage Club every quarter during school time so that everybody, even those who can't come on Saturday, can earn charms during school.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to say the improvement of attendance is fantastic. The kids must really love pieing you, I'm guessing. Is that the
mean,
main incentive, or is there something
They also can
class-wise?
get extra recess. I think
Okay.
that may be more of an incentive, but they do enjoy pieing me.
Gotcha. Cool. Great. That was great to see that. Thank you.
Quick question, on your stretch goal and your growth goal, is the growth goal is a maintenance goal, meaning their position relative to grade level? is
Correct. That will keep
unchanged.
them on grade level
Okay.
and progressing towards the next grade
A
level.
stretch goal would move them closer to either getting to grade level if they're below it or further away.
Correct, or
Okay.
moving them beyond what would be needed to maintain.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. Otherwise, great. Thank you for your work and great presentation.
So on the attendance, Jenna, the attendance increased from 53 to 68. You're saying like 53% of your kids are regular attendees, which means 90% of the time they show up?
Correct.
Something like that,
Yep.
right? So that's an incredible improvement. Good job. And I know you're making it fun for the kids, you and your staff, to come to school. And I think that's really important. And the reality is, if they're not in school, how do we achieve any of the things we want to achieve, right? How do they get taken care of? It's just, we need to get them in school before we can do all the rest. So thank you very much for a great presentation.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anna.
Next up is school report timber.
For support, so.
Perfect.
He asked how many times he could boo, and I said 0, so we'll keep him to that.
Answer.
Okay, yes. So Timber Ridge, our vision is Timber Ridge Titans strive to follow expectations, actively engage in learning, and build positive relationships. It's very simple but direct. So our first goal is connectedness, which really encompasses basically attendance, but also that we also include some pieces of behavior in that, and just looking at how do we get our kids connected to school so they want to attend. I know we had discussion earlier about some of those extracurricular and clubs, and those are super important at the middle school level to get kids connected. But anyway, that was just a little plug for why it's important. But we have a pretty comprehensive plan that we've been using this year. We've had it other years, but we've added to it and have tried to add some layers to it to really help get kids engaged and wanting to come to school. And your sheets that you got, it's in here too, our school-wide plan. It has lots of layers to it, so I will not go over it tonight. But we have tried to really increase some of our green zone things we're doing to get kids at school. And one of those is just having kids be more aware and track their own attendance. Our elementary classrooms started this and had pretty good success. They just put a check in their planner every day that they're there, and then they calculate their actual percentage in their classrooms. And so they're aware of it. It's just an awareness. And so we're starting this also in our middle school classrooms and their advisory. And we've put some incentives in with our elementary kiddos. If it's a perfect attendance day, Andy or I come in and we give them all timber tickets, and we, tell them thanks for being here. And then if they do that 5 times, it doesn't have to be in a row, but they can earn a pizza party with us, and we celebrate the fact that they're coming to school. So just putting in some things that encourage kids to be there. That's a big piece. So our goal was that we currently are at 69% of our students meeting at that 90% or better attendance rate. So we really wanted to go from 67 to 70. We're sitting at 69. We're not going to meet that 70%, but we have had some increase, and we hope that it stays there. And our plan has a lot of other layers to it, but a few of the other things that we did to just get into the connectedness piece, where we did a reboot of our champs expectations, and we said beyond the posters, people have these champs expectations up, but they kind of were there and we weren't fully using them, especially in our middle school. That has been really helpful. We're seeing a big reduction in behavior. I put that in our notes. I think right now we're sitting at 91% in the green zone, which is a little bit of a miracle. We have never been there before. So anyway, we can talk about them more down the road. But anyway, another piece is really making sure we're incorporating our SEL advisory lessons at the middle and elementary, and just focusing on the desired behaviors and community building. And some of those pieces also include restorative circles in those advisory lessons. Goal number 2 is we'll improve our English language arts SBAC outcomes by 5% to grow from 52 to 57. I know Jana just talked about a lot about growth, and that is really where we're focused on, is really making sure we are continuing to make growth for students. I have a slide a little later on that will highlight that more in our early literacy. But as a team, the way we arrive at our goal is we look at through our core review meetings. We have each grade level has everybody that teaches in that grade level. We come together, whether you teach science, math, reading, social studies, PE, we all are there for these meetings. We look at where we're at, and then we talk about our next steps. We do it there, and then in our Avid Site team, we really dive in deeper to some strategies we would like to use, but we have moved to really including everybody in our building as we're building these goals and looking at our data. It's not just one person that's responsible for it, but it's everyone. So some of the action items that we have come up with as a staff, or that we're all continuing to have instruction and best practices for reading, and then some of the biggest things we're really focusing on as a school is that we really are using collaboration strategies in the classroom, so kids are having some much more ownership and engagement in their learning. They're not just getting talked to, but they're actually doing that work. We also have focus on some vocabulary and comprehension strategies that we can use in all content areas. Another big piece is appropriate interventions are in place for students, and we review those regularly. And once again, the whole team, everybody comes, not just the reading teacher, and we talk about, look at the kids' data, where they're at, and we make decisions about where we need to move them or adjust or bring kids in or move them out. So that's pretty fluid, and that happens on a regular basis. Another thing is we looking in our data, we really need to focus on our students with disabilities and our ever language learners. And so some of our vocabulary instruction and comprehension strategies we're using, it's best practice for everyone, but it actually really includes those students more and helps them access the learning in their core classes. And then the other thing that we have really incorporated this year is having students participate in reviewing their own data and setting their own goals. Because what we find, middle schoolers aren't often super excited about taking assessments. They don't necessarily take it seriously. So when they get to look at their data and they're setting goals, it's been great to see the growth that they're making and how they're buying into that more. They're trying harder, they're excited about the growth they're making, and that's been great to see. So math, we also have a similar goal about just overall improvement. A lot of our steps were the same as we determine these things. A few things that we are doing a little bit differently in math is we do have intervention for all grade levels in place. Our 4th and 5th grade students, everybody's leveled for 30 minutes of the day. We do enrichment. Kids that need extra support are getting pre-teaching from a classroom teacher that is teaching that math throughout the day. And then in our middle school classrooms, we have the core math teacher is doing pre-teaching. It's the first class they teach of the day. It's any kids that are needing intervention, they come and they actually are getting pre-taught the lesson. So when they get to math that day, they're much more able to actually engage and participate. And those results have been pretty great. And the teachers talk about it too, like, oh, the kids that sometimes have been lost now are like, oh, I know what I did because I just learned that this morning with you before. And we're also backfilling some holes. But I have to say shout out to our teachers because this is actually a lot of extra work to pre-teach those lessons and figure out what they really need, but they've been doing a fantastic job with that. So this is our slide on early literacy. I just put a snapshot of where we're at currently, and this is not growth goal, this is just where we are as a school right now. You can see there is some growth that was made. We did, basically everyone made growth. We didn't go backwards, but we didn't make huge growth forward. But we were excited to see that we maintained where we were at. The other thing I wanted to point out is with SBAC, I know Jana mentioned this, you can dig in a little bit deeper. And if you look in, you can see more of your growth that you're making. And with our students with disabilities and our English language learners, when you look in and see, are we making growth and how much are we growing towards filling in the gap? It's the change in gap score for these students. So we know they're not making benchmark, but what level are we in that growth? And it's a level 1 through 5, 5 being the highest. We actually had level 5 for both our students with disabilities and our English language learners. They didn't make the metric that they needed to be at grade level, but they are showing growth. And at the highest level. So that's exciting data to look at. And another thing that we get to have our kids 4th through 8th grade, which is great because we get to have some continuum there. And we are getting our kids in passing benchmark at about 30%. And as they leave, we're seeing somewhere between 60 to 70% passing rate for those outgoing 8th graders. So we're making steady growth. Sometimes it bumps up and down, but we are seeing a huge amount of growth over time. Some other key priorities. So we're just working on, like I said, trying to make a place where kids want to come to school every day and build that positive culture and community, and also where staff want to be. So we're working towards really setting a purpose for our students as well and helping them see the importance of school and how that ties into college and career readiness. I know middle school seems kind of young, but if they don't have some purpose for what they're doing, it's harder for them to engage. So next week we're having our career fair. This will be our 3rd year in a row. Our AVID coordinator has done a fantastic job of doing that, bringing in speakers. The kids all get to participate. It's actually 4th through 8th, and that's great to help kind of set the stage for why some of these skills and things we do at school every day are so important. So we're trying to really bring that up and make sure that is there and set that purpose for kids. We're going to continue our work on academic growth, especially for our focal student groups. Some next steps is just the continued focus on strong core instruction that allows access for all students and continued focus on building connectedness for all students. I keep saying continued because I think one great thing that we have going at our school is we have had really consistent staffing and people that know our systems, and we've been able to continue to build on things in our building, and that's been great to see how you can, when you have something in place, you can continue to grow and make slight adjustments here and there, but continue to make that consecutive growth. Some points of pride. I just have to say we really do have amazing staff that are highly skilled, and they really care deeply about students. And we wouldn't be the school we are without them, and same for our students. And we're just seeing an increase in students' willingness to engage, which is awesome. And that is due to our teachers. I fully believe that. Someone commented about how hard the job is. It is really difficult, but it has so many rewards in it. But we see teachers that are willing to come every day, put in their best effort, and really make the difference for kids. So once again, focusing on some things that we have in place. We have some strong systems that have been established over lots of years and that address behavior and academic growth. And we have systems in place to evaluate how we're doing on that. And we can look at where are we growing, what do we want to keep doing, and what areas do we need to adjust and change. And that's a huge benefit. And then just some more opportunities for our students to connect with each other and their school. Some of the things that we get to do, like I said, we have 4th through 8th grade in our building, and so we get to do some really great fun buddy activities that not everyone would do, where we partner up younger and older classes. We have a specific goal. It's going to be on kindness this month. They're going to work together and they're going to do an activity, and it's always, every time we do it, it's always super great. Afterwards, people are excited about it. The kids enjoy it. It's been great. So we do have some clubs, affinity groups, sources of strength is another thing that we get to run in our school, and this is a grant-funded piece, and we're really grateful to have that. Our CTE classes, art, track, cross-country, and Lego robotics are all some areas where kids get to connect with each other. So, and that is it. If people have questions.
I do, yeah. I've never heard about the pre-teaching before. Is that something that all students get to go through, or is it just the students that need more growth, or can you tell me some more about that?
Yes, it's our intervention classes. So a lot of times in intervention, we just solely focus on the missing skills, and we do a lot of trying to get kids caught up. And so we do a combination. We still work on catching up some of those skills, but we really have shifted. It's due to one of our teachers who was like, I've been doing this forever. What if we try giving kids the lesson ahead of time a little bit slower, give them a chance to digest it and understand it. And so when they come into math class, they have a better understanding. And so it isn't for every student. It is just those kids that need extra support. but it does make a big difference in their ability to engage in their math class when they get to their core math time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Brad, Roger?
That's brilliant. I love that idea. Tell your teachers, well done.
See, I said we have amazing
Yeah,
teachers.
fantastic.
So.
Great job. Thank you for all your work. How is student behavior?
Well, as I reported, we actually have more students in the green zone than we have other years. Overall, it's going really well. You know, it's not perfect, and there's things that can be challenges, but I do feel like overall student behavior is going in the right direction.
So it was really rough coming out of COVID, right? And so
Yes,
you've seen a gradual improvement
absolutely.
since.
We've been able to be more proactive about things, and I think the systems that we can put in place to support students, it makes such a difference. And like I mentioned with our reading, we also have the same sort of system we use. Well, we call it multi-tiered systems of support with our behavior, and we do meet full grade level teams every month. So if you're a 7th grade teacher, it doesn't matter what content area you teach, we meet together and we really look at our students that are in the yellow zone-ish, and we put in interventions and we look at the function of the behavior. Why is it happening? What can we do to help reduce it? How do we support them? And not that it's perfect. It's not that it all goes away. We're all humans and things happen, but it does seem to make a huge difference when we can really look at that as a whole team, everybody that's working with the student, put some systems into place, and then we evaluate it monthly.
So you feel like you have the tools available to hold kids accountable?
For the most part, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ryan?
Yeah, the pre-teaching thing, that's really cool. I hope that's a sustainable practice. I always felt like that's something we've been missing is preloading and getting kids some familiarity with the vocabulary and stuff at a time. So, cool.
I hope we can sustain it too.
Yeah, that's the first thing I was thinking of.
Yes.
And then I guess not to put you on the spot, but do you think that your middle school kids would benefit if we had an increased athletic offerings and particularly competing with other schools outside of our district?
Absolutely. So I think anything we have to allow kids to connect with each other and have things that they can focus on that are positive is going to help support our kids.
Yeah, okay.
One thing for Timber, I'll just put this out there, we will start and end later than most middle schools. So it's a little bit limiting to us, and if you noticed the amount of kids that were participating in some of our clubs and such are lower, we do struggle a bit getting people that want to stay, because if you're committing to a club, you're there till at least 5 o'clock at night, or a sport, because we don't get out of school till 3:45. So we do have a bit of a challenge. And also another challenge some of our students have at Timber is it's harder to get to Boys and Girls Club to participate in sports because of the distance, and there's just not public transportation for them. So yes, they would benefit in so many ways, but we do have some challenges because we are the one middle school. I'm just making a plug right now as I'm here and have my moment. We are the one middle school that gets out at 3:45, and so it is a little bit challenging to participate in lots of things because of that time.
Okay. That reminds me, actually, when the data was up for Bruce's presentation, your kids per club was much higher. So your kids were a little bit lower, but your total number of clubs is way lower. So
Yes.
what would you attribute that to?
Basically, it's hard to find people that are willing to run a club that goes from 4 to 5, and usually you don't leave till 5:30ish at night.
It's a staff issue as well as a kid issue.
Yes,
That makes sense.
I think if the more things we had offered, the more kids we would have participate. The ones we offer, we have big participation in, but it's hard to find people to run the clubs.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
What I do want to comment on that is we did a survey and we had a whole group of kids at the high school level that wanted to adjust a schedule to provide club activities during the school day. So, and they would have a free choice of designing what those clubs were. And I know that's a challenge, especially when the school gets out so late. That, like Jody said, they're staying there till 5 o'clock. The interesting thing is there may only be 4 clubs, but I think you had something like 185 participants in those 4 clubs. So overall, the numbers are very comparable, even though there are fewer offerings.
Yeah,
It's proof that if we have a club, they will come.
yeah, very
So
much so.
we just need them. So, yeah.
I think you guys are doing great. It's really nice to see that you're having steady improvement across the board. That has to feel good for you and the rest of your staff. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Consistency is amazing. So
It-
we
it's-
keep looking at these next 7 full weeks of school as an opportunity to have really good consistency. So we're looking at opportunities. So
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have a consent agenda, but first we're going to hear from 2025-26 school calendar and Miss Susie.
Okay, so we had a group of staff and classified, certified, and administrators that put together the license calendar. And you will see that you have an MOU because some things that were decided by the group were needed to have an MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding, because they were different than what we settled in our contract. For example, on October 10th, it's usually the statewide in-service day, and Corvallis, Lebanon, and many districts are not participating in the statewide in-service day anymore. And in trading, we decided as a group that the teachers were really thought that the January 5th would be a better use of their time, since they already have staff development and grading on the 24th, and that would have been 2 weeks in a row of staff development. And they, the MOU, they traded the 10th for January 5th to have the staff development workday on that day. And I can attest that whenever, we just got back from the Safe and Civil Schools, and they said whenever there's a long break, planning to do a really good job when they come back from break is super important, and they were all in support of that. Also on the MOU, in the contract, it says that, so I'm gonna read you directly from the contract. It said 4 hours staff professional development on the state professional development in-service day to be noted on the licensed staff calendar as staff development. And that's what we traded for on January 5th. And it was unanimous decision by the committee, by the way. And then the second thing was 3 hours of staff professional development hours in November to be noted on the licensed staff calendar as staff development. And everyone chose to move the November staff development grading to October, so teachers could do grading before conferences. And we've been having conferences during that Thanksgiving week, and elementary staff on the calendar committee said that was just way too late for letting parents know how their students were doing, and they would rather have it in October. So we all agreed that we would move conferences the last week in October. So again, that we needed an MOU for that, because they used to be in November, and that's what it says in the contract. And with a brand-new contract, we want to make sure that we're following the contract anytime, but especially these are new. And so I'm able to answer any questions that you may have.
Anyone questions? Roger?
So does that result in more school days in November?
It results in more school days. Oh, gosh, I didn't even realize. I am so sorry. I apologize. Yes, it results in more school days in November, as we had most of Thanksgiving week off, and the elementary teachers on the committee just thought that was too late for conferences, that by the time, if we had conferences that late, that our students would already be in school. Let's see, 8, 9, 10,
12
11,
weeks.
12 weeks. And they felt like no communication face-to-face with parents was too long.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
So I'm asking that you would do two things. Approve the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, with our certified and classified employees. And it's certified because it's their contract. So I said that wrong. I was looking at the classified one that I'm going to talk about next. And so sign the MOU with the certified employees and approve the calendar so that we can publish it out to parents and community so that they can make plans for next school year as well as our staff.
Okay, sounds like I'm looking for two motions.
So moved.
Yeah. You're just the license or classified and the,
I'm just doing the license
Just
and then
the
I'll
certified
explain the
first.
classified. to
Certified
you
and
as
then
well.
the contract.
calendar is the second one.
L3 and then L1. or I1.
Calendar and the MOU.
For certified.
Fixing the calendar for certified from what was stated in their contract.
Gotcha, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we have 1 and 2 done. Next up
And I
is,
should have told you, excuse me, Chair Morris, but I should have told you that the certified passed it first before you, to make sure that they were on board.
I assume you said they all voted in favor?
Yes.
Or all the committee?
The committee,
the
but
committee.
the certified bargaining
The MOU.
committee did
Okay.
as well.
Great.
Their
Thank you.
governance council.
Okay, so now we need, next up is memorandum of understanding classified additional student contact time. Is this really additional student contact time, or we're just making up time when they weren't there?
It's the same makeup time
Okay.
that with the certified, and we needed our classified to be a part of that because they're such an essential part
Exactly,
of our
okay.
school as well.
Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I need a motion for personnel classified.
I move to approve as presented.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, next, minutes, regular board meeting, 1/27/25.
Move to approve as presented.
I need
I'll
a second.
second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, next up, old business. Reports, equity update. Kelsey?
So just real quick as we go in here, I really want to make sure that everybody understands. First of all, Kelsey, glad to have you back after your illness. And just, we have listened at times to special education as we work with students on learning disabilities. This district provides food for our children of poverty, and now more than that. And I just want us to really clearly have an understanding that, and I think Kelsey's going to give us some enrollment, which we did not include in the previous report. We have a lot of kids here in this district that need a support and are at times having a hard time coming to school right now. And I really want us to think about her work in terms of being a really critical lifeline and place where they can find knowledge for those families right now. Go ahead, Kelsey.
It is my first time using the clicker. Okay, here we go. Thank you all for being here this evening. I'm excited to chat with you about what I've been doing and what's coming. At the beginning of the year, I spoke with you all. At the beginning of the year, I spoke with you all about some of the partnerships that we're continuing into this year. The last 2 years, we were able to have partnerships with West Ed at the high schools, and they did a lot of beautiful work, and we wanted to continue that and bring it into the middle school and elementary school. Bruce had a wonderful idea of creating a cohort, an equity cohort, where we would have a school from each level working collaboratively, and then also then reporting back to their levels teams as kind of like a model, with the hope that in the coming years we would incorporate more work across all levels. So the West Ed team is coming actually next week to do walkthroughs with each of those cohort schools. We had our kickoff event 2 weeks ago where we just kind of introduced some of the practices that we have historically done in schools. That looks like walkthroughs of classrooms, reviewing curriculum, empathy interviews with students, walkthroughs of hallways, trying to see what classrooms feel like, who's participating, how are maybe our more marginalized kiddos not participating and why, and then that feedback would be gathered throughout the year and used in our school improvement plans, as well as professional development for teachers to kind of expand the ways in which they're supporting all students in classes. So some of that work looks like crosswalking the Cell 5D rubric with some of the culture responsive tools that WestEd has created. We're really trying to strengthen our Tier 1 supports for schools, and also going to offer some professional development to each of the schools that we're working with. We were really fortunate that this is funded through Oregon Department of Education's school improvement programming. Essentially, it's a free contract that I was able to apply for, and they're supporting us for a whole year. And then due to the strike, we were able to shift it into the first half of next year as well. So we didn't lose time. They were really flexible with us, and we just get to continue that great work, which is exciting. And another wonderful partnership that I'm grateful that works with the district is Jamie Almanson. He was just here, I believe, last week and worked with our administrators. We're really trying to build capacity with our leaders. There's one of me and 21 schools, and we have a lot of fantastic principals and leaders that are really bought into this work as well. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to partner with Jamie and our principals and make sure that we're building more collaboration amongst each other, as well as confidence to tackle some of these issues. I know that I focused my career on this, but not everyone did, right? So having people feel more comfortable with it, that it takes time. Jamie does a beautiful job of really inviting people into the work. So our goal is that no one feels embarrassed at their areas of growth, but it feels able to step up. And we're also going to be focusing on some of our responses to bias incidents, particularly the critical conversations that come with parents and community and students. That takes practice. One of our previous PDs that we did was a fishbowl where we had two adults, one of his teams and one of our principals from North Albany Middle School, Breezika, go through a scenario, and everyone else watched. And it's a really wonderful opportunity for people to kind of see how someone else might handle conflict in that moment, because it can be a little intimidating at times. I know I get gecko brain sometimes when, or lizard brain, right, when you're in that moment. And so having the opportunity to practice in a safe space really allows for our fantastic principals to feel more confident in the moment when they're not there with me or with Jamie or Bruce or whomever. So I'm very grateful for the principals who are also leaning into that work. And then, yes, so our community engagement and demographics. We spoke at the beginning of this meeting about our demographics and student engagement and enrollment. And our largest marginalized demographic is Latino. And within the first 2 years, actually, I think Andy and I were just speaking that potentially it's up to 35% just in my 2 years being here. And we know that that population continues to grow. I am not a mathematician, but by my quick calculations, that was above 3,000 students belong to the Latino community. And we're doing our best to make sure that their families understand that schools are safe spaces for them, that GAPS is willing to support them, and that our goal is that they feel able to come to school daily regardless of what's happening in community and show up and learn. We were able to do a community event with LBCC's equity team a couple months ago. Bruce was there, Jason Dorset and Angel Dorantes, who's their Latinx engagement person at LBCC. We called every single family in our district, not me, I always say we, but my amazing team at the Welcome Center. They they broke that up and they talked to every single family member, because we know that they benefit from that hand-holding, from that communication, that texting and email, not as much. They always have follow-up questions. And so they each, I think, allotted about 5 minutes per call. It took a couple weeks, but our turnout was incredible. We had 125 people come, and they continued to filter in throughout the entire event. We had 25 kids there. I was really grateful that we had some staff from GAPS come and help with childcare, including some students from MECHA. And I was really excited because it was all boys that showed up from MECHA, and they were just there, happy to help. So that was wonderful. And it was a long presentation, and it was a lot of information, and our families drank it up, and I think really felt grateful that we were there trying to support them and make sure that they knew we cared. What's coming up in terms of supporting all community, but specifically this community, I am grateful to sit on the DAT with the Albany Police Department, and we are working on a law enforcement listening session, actually across multiple school districts. I have a strong belief that what's happening in Lynn County and in Benton County, we should be working together across districts and across police departments as well, because it's a shared community concern. So we're working on a campaign where we would push out questions that families might have to be answered virtually in case there's fear of coming in person to one big space together. And we would have that translated into multiple languages and then posted. Additionally, I'm working on a student listening session with our BIPOC and marginalized student affinity groups, just hearing directly from them what are their concerns as students in our school buildings. Also working to plan a listening session with some of our teachers who support our most vulnerable populations, just to hear specifically what they need from me in terms of answering questions and being prepared to hold space for their students. I know that there's some concern around that, so I'm starting to plan that as well. There's some additional community events happening in the community, which GAPS will hopefully be kind of tacking on to rather than reinventing the wheel, but working together as a community. I didn't get the data up here because we didn't pull it secondarily, but I believe on the 21st, John Dilbone was able to pull some information around attendance, and we were just trying to see if there'd been any shifts in the recent weeks regarding our English learning and Latino students in terms of their coming to school. And we did see a little bit of a trend that in that section of time that we looked at, which we will continue to monitor and pull routinely, and I'm happy to share more information with this in the future. But 6 out of the 7 days consecutively, when we looked at our 10-day drop timeline, we did have about 29 students who had consistently not been attending, and all of those kids were from this demographic. So that's something that we want to look at. Today I did send out an email to our administrators just expressing this type of attendance should be handled just like any other situation where we're seeing a gap in kiddos showing up, that we would just reach out, that we would ask if there's anything they need. We would do a check around that, and if we see any alarming trends, that would be brought to Sue, Bruce, myself, and we would see what we needed to do to support those communities and those families specifically. So that's just kind of where we're at. I would like us to look at, do a snapshot of other days throughout the year and see if that's really a trend that we're just seeing currently. We want to make sure that all of that's accurate, but that was just a preliminary grab that we did. I spoke about this briefly, but this is something I'm incredibly proud of, and again speaks to my desire to work as a community. I'm newer to this area. I've lived here about 3 years, but I really want Lynn and Benton counties to work collaboratively, particularly in terms of how all of our schools are pushing work forward for our marginalized youth. I sit on the regional equity group that is across districts, and I was grateful to work with Jason Dorsett, Joanne Miller, and Ty Anderson of the NAACP, Can Cultivate, and the African American Youth Leadership Conference. We worked collaboratively to apply for this grant as a team. It's a highly competitive grant, and about 17 groups across the entire state are granted it. And historically, The Mid-Valley has not seen those dollars. They're often in Salem or in Portland, and we thought that our most competitive way to access these funds was to work as a group and then split the costs across 4 years. And we were able to secure that funding, and that will be starting soon. I was on the phone with Jason this afternoon, and we're just waiting on our final contract, and then we can start spending. We have some really exciting things planned, but ultimately we just want to support Black student success across all of our school districts, across all of our schools, both in community and in school, whether that's curriculum or tutoring or parent community engagement and outreach. We know things that are happening in community bleed into school space, and we want to make sure that our families feel loved and welcome in community and in our schools. So I'm excited about that, and I look forward to updating you more as those programs get started. And our bias incidents. So at this point, we're about halfway through the year. If I recall, last year we had about 436 by the end of the year, and that was the first year that we were really tracking internally. And if you remember, I said that high numbers means that we're doing our job. We know that these things exist. They're existing in all of our schools and in community, et cetera. What I'm really proud of is my principals leading into, not my principals, but the principals and GAPS leaning into this and being okay with being uncomfortable with some of the content or even some of the conversations that come from it. I'm particularly grateful for Andy Wynn and Jody Dodera, who are never afraid to call me up and ask for guidance, and I've been really impressed with their ability to navigate these things in this secondary year of tracking this way. I will also share that in the past few weeks, I have heard reports from families, students, teachers, and admin that we have seen an uptick in bias incidents. They're not captured on this because this was our quarterly grab, so in our next one, it may show an increase. And ultimately, what that means also is that our teachers are being diligent, that our students are feeling more comfortable expressing, and then our admin are getting more confident in navigating that system. So we know that there's going to be a trend up before it trends down. I am comfortable with high numbers. They don't worry me. It just means I know where I need to go to support and that there's opportunity for growth. And one of the antidotes to bias incidents and the outcomes that come from some of that hurt feeling and discomfort and maybe feelings of unwelcomeness is our affinity groups, which I'm really grateful for, and for the administrators and teachers and staff who are willing to support that with me. And this year, I'm really grateful to have Heather Carmichael working alongside me in a more profound way. She has given her time generously and voluntarily historically, and this year it's a more intentional partnership with a focus on also building capacity of our adult leaders in our schools. Again, I say I am one person, and last year, while it was fantastic to be in schools as much as I was, it was like 30 hours of my week in schools running these spaces. And while I still participate, I wanted to really make sure that each building had adult leaders and those groups were continuing without just me. In addition to this, Heather and I are co-hosting sessions for our adult leaders to bounce ideas off of us, questions. We're helping them build curriculum for those groups, as well as offering affinity space to some of these BIPOC leaders themselves, that this can be an isolating job at times, so just offering relief to each other as well, and the emotional capacity that it takes to support our students who are experiencing harm takes a toll on us as well. And so making sure that they also have that support is really a wonderful thing. And I'm excited that we have a couple of fantastic events coming up for our students to engage in. So we have the Cesar Chavez event, the AAYLC Rooted in Blackness banquet, which Justin Adams at South brought to Heather and I, and we're really excited to get our high schoolers there. And then the Latine Conference, which is our second year happening, and that's at LBCC, which I help plan alongside some wonderful people in community. And that brings me to my last topic, which is just one more way for us to engage community, both in students and teachers, as well as each other, all of us here. We're all here because we care about students and community. And so Senate Bill 732 is an amendment that essentially is requiring all school districts to have a district equity coalition. This is happening across the state. I believe it was put into place, yes, in 2021, but just due to our size as a district, we weren't required to adopt it until this year. We are starting the recruitment process for that. Essentially, what it does is provides a snapshot of input from community, and we would work collaboratively with the board. This would include students, parents, teachers, or other community members. And it would be an opportunity to kind of share ideas around what things we should be pushing forward in schools and as a district. We're at the beginning stages of rolling that out. That is happening in Corvallis as well as Lebanon and Philomath. So that's what I have for you this evening. Any questions? Yeah, that was a lot. I'm just drinking from a fire hydrant.
Quick question. Not specifically related to anything on this. You weren't here the last board meeting, but I kind of heard a couple conflicting stances from the two different principals that presented at that point. I was just wondering what the general overall philosophy or teaching was, or your stance on it. One said equity of outcomes, and one said equity of opportunities, and those aren't quite the same thing. I was wondering for some more information on that.
Can you give me a little more context? I don't know who was presenting or what it was relating to.
It was Tangent Elementary and South Albany High School. They were just saying that was their main focus. One was saying that they wanted to have equal opportunities. And one was saying they wanted to have equal outcomes. So I was just curious what your thoughts were on how to teach that.
I mean, I suppose each school is different, and so when they create their school improvement plans, they all have different goals and different outcomes that they're hoping to achieve. I can't personally speak to what their goals were for each of those. It sounds like one is looking at expanding opportunities for their students in an equitable way, and another is hoping that the work that they're doing is showing an increase in the outcomes in an equitable way. That's off the top of my head.
I would agree with that.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Kelsey, thank you. Great work. Heather, I wanted to take a minute and thank you for all the time that you spend with the district. It's very much appreciated, and we don't often get to say thank you, so I'd like to just publicly today say thank you for all of your work you've done. Kelsey, back to the bias reporting on that chart. Do you have a sense if that's higher or lower than last year? From what we've, just kind of to compare the two?
Yeah, I think that if I recall, at the end of last year, we were at like 436. And so we're about midway. It looks like it's pretty on par to be similar. But as I did state, we have had an uptick of late. And I expect our numbers to rise a little bit. But I'm confident in our administrators, our teachers, and even our students to be advocating for themselves as well as their peers. So I do expect to see a bit of an uptick in that.
And do you feel fairly comfortable that the teachers and the administrators are getting what they need to help deal with the incidents and try to affect some change, or are we still trying to get there?
I mean, I think I'm doing my best to provide them with the tools. I'm always open to feedback from them directly about what I can be doing to support that differently. I think that the collaborative work with WestEd as well as with Jamie is helping to grow that comfort. I think this is always an area that we can all be improving, and not every single situation on there is the same. And not every teacher is like some of it is happening in class, right? So the way that each teacher handles it might be different than the one to the next, but practice and the ability to reach out to me, I'm more than welcome to or more than happy to always support the growth and comfort around it as well.
Thank you.
Of course.
I have process questions. I don't even know who they're for. Maybe for Superintendent Gardner. So it looks like Senate Bill 732 passes in 2021. And am I reading that right? It took the Department of Ed 2 years to establish district equity committees
So it was rolled out, I think it was large districts first, then they had a little bit of a step down to capture more and more districts so that there was a rollout.
Okay, so I'll skip all the other questions and just get to my last one. One, are we in compliance with the law? Two, is there an action step we should take tonight as, again, the underlying Senate bill was passed 4.5 years ago?
So the law has it as the superintendent will form the committee, and we would work on that with you guys. I do believe that there is an act prior to September 15th where you will establish the committee. A second step is that a member of that committee will serve on the budget committee for the district. If there are no openings immediately, then a person will join when an opening occurs from that committee. But that doesn't necessarily have a time basis, but those are the steps, but the board will take an action.
Well, the September 15th date is still 6-7 months out. Is there any reason we couldn't act prior to that? I mean, again, I'm dealing with
Well, I think you could set it up beforehand. We just don't have the membership yet, for you to look at as well.
okay,
We're well ahead of it.
only in education.
We had a lot of warning, though. We
we're-
knew this was coming
we're-
for 3 years.
Well, I mean, but we're ahead of it, okay.
I'm happy to share with you, if you'd like, some of the slides that we've seen from other districts in our area who've started the process and what that looks like. The group would be sizes from like 8 to 11. We're trying to make sure that it's still forward-thinking, solution-focused, while also having a wide variety of folks at the table. And there would be like an application process. So we're working on that. We would send it out and then have a review board and make sure that folks are willing to work together.
I don't want to get any further into the weeds in this, but again, our goal is to follow the law and to do that in a timely manner. So, thank you, Mr.
Yep. No, it's something that's been in discussion for a couple months, and we know we're ahead of it. But we definitely need to follow through. Thank you for all your work. Sorry, Ryan.
Sorry.
Go.
Back on the bias reporting data, I had a couple of questions. The numbers on here represent the victims in these cases were members of a protected class, right? Racial, disability, okay. And then bullying just means you weren't able to specifically make it about one of those other things?
So what this did show me is that perhaps not everyone is clicking through the different taglines that it's related to. So that means that I need to
Okay, because it almost feels
remind
like
folks.
they're all bullying, and those are all subcategories. of-
Exactly. No,
Okay.
you are not wrong. And this year we also created a toggle that says bias incidents as well. So I'm going to have to go back to the board and just remind folks, hey, you're doing a beautiful job. And don't forget, click what it's related to.
Okay, and then, and I don't, this question, and maybe this isn't a good question, and maybe it doesn't matter. Do you track the perpetrators by race, ethnicity, that kind of thing? In other words, if people in a like cultural group are engaging in bullying, would it make the number be up there? That makes sense?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're asking. So anytime we see, like if I were to go into this, I'd be able to see everyone who's involved and how many times they've been involved in things. I'm not currently pulling the data to look at that.
Okay,
I think it's kind of across the board.
yeah, and it probably doesn't matter, I was just curious. Okay, and then my other question is on the Black Student Success Act. Is there a data component to that in terms of measuring success and determining what that looks like on the other end of the grant?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of the school districts and organizations that we're partnering with had to submit an MOU, and we all had varying goals, but they were all related to, let's see, 9th grade on track, literacy goals. Some of them are going to look different. Like the Kin Cultivate is going to have more of a community-based goal. I'm happy to share with you what our MOU was in the future.
Yeah, I think maybe the next
Absolutely.
year.
Happy to.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. That's it.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelsey. Okay, next up is, oh yeah. Let's have a couple minute recess.
Thank you.
Well, that's what I was trying to, yeah. That's why, yeah, it's not very refined.
Get started again. Next up, we're still in graduation rates. I think that's Bruce.
Yes. Thank you, Board Chair. I have the pleasure to present some information on graduation rates. Here we go. Whoopsie, wrong way. There we go. So this is a little confusing, and what is on our state report card is actually a year behind. So the numbers that you're going to see me present are not going to look like these numbers, because what's reported is from the 22-23 school year, and I'm going to report on the graduation rates from the 23-24 school year. So if you like, wait, the numbers don't match, that's why, okay? So as reported on our state report card, our graduation rate was 82% for on-time graduates, and we had a 93% graduation rate for five-year completers, okay? Those are from the 22-23 school year. Moving forward is all of our graduation rate from last year, 23-24, okay? When we look at our numbers for the 23-24 year, all students graduated at an 83% rate. And I am going to point out in parenthesis, you'll see the completer rate. The graduation rate does not account for students that earned a GED. However, it means that we did have several students that completed with the GED within 4 years. And I think that's important to recognize, especially when you look at Albany Option School, okay? South Albany High School had a graduation rate of 87%. That's a 1% increase, and a 90% completer rate. West Albany High School, 94, and a 95% completer rate. And while AOS only had 36% of their students graduate with a diploma in 4 years, they had 75% of their kids graduate with either a diploma or a GED. They do fantastic work there, and I think we need to recognize that, okay? We outperform the state in all areas outside of Albany Option School. But again, they're working with some of our most needy students, and they are getting it done in one way or another. When we look at our five-year completer rate, these are students that finished in 5 years and is inclusive of earning a GED. So all students in the five-year completer rate for GAPS is 91%, outperforming the state. 91% at South Albany High School, 97% at West Albany, and 81% at AOS. A little bit below the state average, but again, we retain students and make sure they complete at the five-year rate. When we start looking at some of our subgroups, I think this is important, and Sean, this will go back to your both equity and access and equity of outcome. We're looking at a K-12 system, and we want to make sure that we're looking at all of our subgroups to see how they're performing within our system. We know that students have fantastic opportunities as they move through the system, but we also want to make sure that they hit that capstone of graduation. The four-year graduation rate for all is 83, 1% above the state. When we look at our Hispanic Latino group, 85% in GAPS, 79% in the state, so again, an outperformance. Students with disabilities are a little underperforming as represented by the state. Some of this has to do with cohort. Some years you'll see a much higher number, some years you'll see a lower number, just because those numbers fluctuate over time. Our English learners in high school, these are students that are English learners. 87% of them are graduating in 4 years, which far surpasses the state average. And then our CTE participants at a rate of 92%. These are students that participate in one or more one credit in a CTE class. When we look at our five-year completer rate, again, you can go down that list, and in general, we're outperforming the state, except in one area. So 91% for all versus 84. 90% of our Hispanic Latino students are finishing in 5 years. 81% of our students with disabilities, 72% for our English learners, and greater than 95% of our CTE participants are finishing in that 5-year mark. Generally, you might see a dip in the 5-year completer rate. The higher your 4-year graduation rate is, the lower your 5-year completer rate can be. There's an accountability detail, and what that does is that gives us a level of 1 through 5 based on our cohort graduation rate and 5-year completer rate. Again, so to get that 4-year, that level 4, you want to see a 4-year graduation rate of 82% or higher. And then for 5-year completers, that increases. So you'll see that level 4 or above at 90% or higher, and you're going to see a lot of colors in these next few charts that match those cut scores. So this table compares gaps in comparison to the state by year, going back to 2017-18. And you'll see that we consistently as a district stay in that dark green, meaning that we're meeting that 82% or higher in the 4-year graduation rate and the 90% or higher in the 5-year completer rate. It's always nice to outperform the state. We have a 1% margin, but again, that's a combination of all 3 of our high schools. And if you can recall, AOS has a lower 4-year graduation rate when you factor out the GED component, right? So we have several of our students that are earning that diploma, both a standard state diploma and a GED, but that is not factored in this number. This is interesting data to look at because it factors in our 9th grade on track data. We know that when 9th graders are earning 6 or more credits at the end of their 9th grade year, they're much more likely to graduate. And it's a direct indicator. You might ask yourself, well, Bruce, I see that 78% of our 9th graders are on track, yet we're still graduating 83% of our kids. It just means that we have to make up more ground over that 4-year time period. The more students we have on track, the less intervention we have to provide, the less tracking we have to provide, chasing down kids to get them to graduate, the more time we can invest in offering better opportunities for kids, whether that be advanced coursework, college articulated classes, more CTE offerings, and providing lower class sizes overall because we're not having to dedicate FTE to make up for lost credits that 9th grade year. Last year, we ended at 78%. Well, the seniors that graduated last year were at 78% their freshman year, making up to 83% in that 4-year graduation rate. We don't know who our 5-year completers are until next year for that class of 2024. Okay? We are underperforming a little bit as compared to the state with our 9th grade on track rate. We are working very closely with the Center for High School Success. At the end of semester 1, we're landing about 10 percentage points higher than we were last year. So we are investing time, energy, and funds with our teachers to work on that 9th grade on track. And we will see that pay out over the course of this year and obviously in subsequent years as those students move through the system. Some of the focused work that we're doing to increase our graduation rate, as I stated, 9th grade success systems. That's working with the Center for High School Success and keeping our 9th graders on track. One big change we made this year is at South Albany High School, we moved to the block schedule. So students have more credit opportunities over their 4 years than they had in the past, and that will play out over time. We do offer credit recovery opportunities in the summer. And this year, we're piloting a program for a night school option at South Albany High School. Students will have the opportunity to earn credit and recover credit from first semester immediately in the second semester. They'll be able to do that in language arts, science, and math. And the South Albany team is organizing that work right now. And we'll have students that are engaging in evening courses from 3:30 to 5, and we'll have South Albany High School teachers that are teaching those real time this semester. Okay. Albany Options is a great opportunity for our district and for our students. It offers a smaller learning setting and a different option for kids to go and build a smaller community with a lot less noise during the school day. The staff there does a fantastic job engaging students, and that GED program is a vital role in our district. And while it doesn't count for a graduation rate, so to speak, it does get students completed and options after high school by completing that program. We offer several advanced courses at all 3 of our schools, most specifically at West Albany and at South. We have a very extensive career and technical education program and offerings at both schools. Both schools offer college articulated courses, meaning they're taking classes from teachers at West and South and earning college credit. And then we have our bilingual education program at South Albany High School. That continues from our bilingual ed programs at South Shore, and then both at Calapooya and NAMS, and then at South. Also, that Stacy presented last board meeting around our bilingual ed program and the number of students that earn a seal of biliteracy at the end of their high school career. And we have, I think we had something like 80 students last year that earned that seal of biliteracy, sorry. The other thing is that we're really working hard to increase our involvement in school activities. There are no fees charged for athletics, for any elective courses or CTE courses. So that offers students the opportunity to take any course they want without an associated fee, as well as participating in athletics and activities. And that's my presentation.
Any questions?
You have any indications on how that will trend going forward at this point?
In terms of graduation rate?
Yeah.
It is the holy grail for every high school principal, right, is to get those numbers and increase your graduation rate. Based on what we're working on with our 9th graders, and there's gonna be some pretty innovative steps taken next year that we're already starting to plan. It's an intensive focus. Obviously, the better we do with our 9th graders, the better our graduation rate will be. I also believe that with the movement to the block schedule at South Albany High School, that will have a huge impact on our numbers over the course of 4 years, just with the sheer fact that they're getting 32 credits of opportunity versus the 26, 28 they had before. So that's a big jump just by the laws of percentages. The more opportunities you have, the better chances you have to earn those credits towards graduation. South Albany High School with their AVID program is a national demonstration site. They continue and consistently find ways to engage students in looking at college options and graduation. So that plays a factor. And then, of course, you've seen it with our athletic programs and the number of, we had a great run in the fall, great run in the winter. That obviously builds school culture, spirit, and engagement within programs. That all has an impact on what you see as a graduation rate.
Thank you.
You bet.
Other thing I'd like to mention, I think you look at our numbers, and our numbers are fantastic. Really, the only place you see our numbers kind of look bad are 9th grade on track, right? And I think part of that is, I think the block schedule will help out, for 9th graders. Honestly, I think also a big thing that'll help us out is I don't believe in the past our middle schools really were necessarily getting the kids ready for real grades and how that worked, because they kind of got half their grade for, basically being alive, and that's not how life works. So I believe that because those kids will be more prepared, I don't think we'll have as much non-success as a 9th grader because they've already learned that lesson, in middle school. And, oh, by the way, they have 8 tries at it instead of just 7 now. So I suspect that number will go up, and that'll help us a lot in all our numbers. But, I look at this, and it just, to me, just yells, what the heck were we doing in middle school?
It's interesting, having the experience of being a middle school principal and working at the high school for as many years as I did. That transition from 8th to 9th grade, whether you are matching the grading system or not, is a huge leap. You're going from schools of 600 students to schools of 1,200 plus. There's a lot more freedom. You go from a 7-period, 50-minute per period schedule to a block schedule of 90 minutes a pop with each class. You have 14 and 15-year-old boys that are trying to figure it out. It's a huge transition. Some of the innovative work that's going to be done next year with our 9th grade students is we're looking at building a house model where students will have the same math, science, and language arts teacher, making it easy for those teachers to track student progress and have specific conversations about students. We're looking to have at least one house at West and up to 3 houses at South. That will really shrink the work for those teachers and provide a much tighter community for those students that have those overlapping classes, still providing them the opportunity to take a full series of elective offerings. And it's really about building those transitions. We're currently going to be in my next meeting with secondary principals on Thursday. We're really going to start looking at what that transition looks like, how we're welcoming students into the buildings, how we're introducing parents to our programming at both the middle school and then from middle school to high school, and getting parents and families in buildings to see what opportunities are available for students and to kind of demystifying what that high school transition looks like. The other thing that we really need to work with in terms of parents is a lot of times they think that, hey, my kid's going into high school, they're all grown up, they're ready to be students, and I don't really have to track their progress as much anymore. And that is very far from the truth. Any of us that have had kids in high school know that that is not true. We're still digging papers out of kids' backpacks. We need to track their grades. They still show up with one shoe at the end of the day. Why, I don't know, but they do. And it is a transition that it's very real and it's very challenging. So making that intentional focus on what that looks like for kids is going to be ongoing work and important work.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right, new business, 2025-27 LBL ESD Local Services Plan.
Want to welcome LBL Assistant Superintendent Nancy Griffith, and this is a first reading. Oh, and Marion Cummings from the board, welcome.
Mic on? Testing, testing. Here,
Says
Nancy,
on.
you go first. You go first, Nancy.
Janet, is this the public comment section?
No.
It is not. She is a representative of a body that's presenting.
Presenting. I am here. I'm just for moral support. But yes, Miriam Cummins, she, her, ella. I am a board member with LBL Zone 6, which represents GAPS. So, Nancy, take it away. I'm just here to look pretty.
Well, does this go any taller? Maybe? No? Okay, I'll just talk loud. Used to teach middle school, so it's got the voice, right? So here is the local service plan, and this is the first time in quite a while that a complete revamp of the service plan has happened. And so it was a joint effort with the ESD and with the 12 component district superintendents. They had several meetings about it. There were a few subcommittees that met. For example, the business managers met about some of the business items. Tech met together. SPED has met together. So, and multiple meetings too. Jane, how many did you guys have? Like 3? I think so, yeah. So a lot of brains, a lot of really great, intelligent people had a say in what this looks like. And there really weren't a ton of like actual changes to the services that are going to fit in Tier 1. But we did change the entire book to make it a little more readable for anyone. So all of our Tier 1 services, and that is what all of the districts receive, are all together in the first section. And then the Tier 2 services, which are what we sell to districts who can purchase through their Tier 2 funding or just their general funds, those are in the next section so that everything is a little bit more laid out so people can understand it better. Before it was all mixed together. So I know this is your first reading, but does anything just jump out at you right now about it?
And
You
just,
did receive it, right?
Yeah, it's in the
yeah, and it's in their packet. So first reading, so if you guys want to look through that and have any questions, the Tier 1 is what we all together come together and pay for. Tier 2 is what we would buy on a per item.
So as an example, you have a family support liaison who works with your FACT group. She is purchased through either Tier 2 funds or general funds. I don't know which dollars you use. And then you have a behavior consultant who works with several of your schools. She's also a Tier 2 purchase.
And so we'll have a second reading,
Can you
and that's
just
to
highlight
adopt the
what's
plan.
changed? Besides the.
There's a program that we're not offering anymore as a Tier 1 service.
Structure hasn't
So,
changed.
yes, right, there's just certain things that
Yeah.
aren't there now, they weren't being used enough by enough of the 12 component districts.
Okay.
But again, that went through all the committees and all of that, they did a lot of talking about it.
And Jason, if you'll recall, Tanya had retired August or September of last year.
Yeah.
And he felt like it would be a good time to just go through and rebuild it all, examine it. And so it's coming, but every year you guys do in fact adopt.
Yeah, we'll still see the actual things we're doing
Yeah.
at Tier 1.
It looks prettier now.
Yeah, that's 88 pages of pretty, so I don't have it memorized.
We send it to you electronically rather than print it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay. If you guys don't have any questions right now,
And if you do have any questions, ask Andy and he will reach out to us and get the answers for you. All right, thank you very much.
thank you both for coming.
Absolutely.
All right, next up, public comment at board meetings, BDDH policy. Roger?
You had some questions earlier. Did you want to bring them up?
Well, as we walk through this and I'm trying to visualize how this actually happens, we're attempting to limit it to 3 minutes a speaker, knowing tonight that we've been here a while. So if we're serious at 3 minutes, not that I've ever aspired to do anything like the Oregon legislature, but they have a timer with lights, green, yellow.
Be up on the screen.
We have one of those too?
There'll be a timer up on the screen that will show.
Will there be an air horn when you get to 3 minutes? I mean, how's it? No? Okay, because it will be difficult.
They will.
And then if you've got 15 minutes, that assumes that it would be a maximum of 4.
4 or 5, yep.
What? I don't think you're going to get 5 in 15 minutes. I mean, just unless it's a.
Burn and burn.
And so that leaves no engagement opportunity. And there's no rules in the board policy that prohibits engagement. And I'm good with that.
I just think it's rare you'll have 4 people, right? So, and if you do, then I think we want to limit engagement if we've got that many people, right?
Well, and so, does the board have a duty when we're presented with a statement or information, as an example, that might not be completely accurate? We have a duty to correct that, or is this just
It will be hard for me not
food?
to,
Well,
as I'm sure it would be for you.
yeah.
So,
So I guess ultimately my question is flexibility in this. And
Yes,
I-
we need,
I-
yes.
Well, I don't know that, does this policy give you the flexibility to waive anything in the policy at any time the chair or whoever's holding the gavel deems appropriate? I think,
It says in here, the board chair had discretion to waive time limits or extend the overall time allotted for public comment. Additional time will be allocated in a fair and equitable manner. I would tell you my intent is, I don't want to be the judge on that. I want to stay to 3 minutes and move on. Otherwise, no matter how you do it, it'd be perceived as inequitable. I think the opening of time limits for someone to make a statement and maybe us talk to it, sure, that doesn't include it in the 3 minutes. But I think if you give more time to one person than the other, you're just looking to get critiqued.
I mean, the only way you can avoid getting critiqued is not just sign your name up on the application to run for office in the first place.
Correct.
Chris had something, if you.
Chris, go ahead.
The policy is really written to give the language for more flexibility. The information that will be available up on our website as a handout, that's more like the administrative regulation where it's the operating procedures. So we can adjust as we need to. But the policy is written more on the how, and it gives you the flexibility to change. So you're not stuck, you wouldn't have to go back and update the policy to update the process, if that makes sense. So if we get into it, we decide, you know what, 15 minutes isn't long enough, we want to extend it to 20, we want to extend it to 30, we want to go 5 minutes instead of 3 minutes. I mean, 3 minutes is the one thing that is in the policy, so that piece would have to be updated, but the rest of it is more flexible with the language that's in the policy.
Okay. I would move approval as presented, and even to the point of be willing to take a trial run at this tonight.
It says you have to sign up before the meeting. Nobody
Yeah, I don't
signed
know that
up.
we are in a
No,
position to do
Roger.
that.
Right tonight, there's no public
I
comment.
know
All right,
I know I'm mistaken, but I thought I was the elected official here.
You are correct, you are.
Mistaken.
I'll second the motion. Now we can have
Well done,
discussion.
Sean. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. We already did the school calendar. Future agenda items, no other business. Looking for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
What about the public the motion passed. I retreat.
Nobody signed up, no public comment.
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?